Hello, Richard here at Calvin Wazoo, where I am about to enter a realm where I know something is happening, but I don't quite know what it is. And that is, I'm going to join Poetry Thursdays. I've just recently been diving into the ocean known as BookTube, and I am only familiar with a handful of channels. I still need to explore more of BookTube. But one thing that has really caught my attention is this thing called Poetry Thursday, in which booktubers read poetry. And it's intrigued me because poetry, all my life, poetry has both fascinated me and intimidated me. I love poetry, but I have been very feeble in my attempts to write my own. Professionally, I'm a writer, more of a journalist. But I have made ventures in writing fiction and more recently in writing screenplays. I enjoy doing that. Nothing produced yet. I'm still kind of developing on that front. Journalism, however, have had a very successful career with that. But anyway, yeah, poetry is something that even when it comes to like writing song lyrics, I really appreciate a songwriter whose lyrical sense brings in a poetic sense as well. But by and large, I've avoided even reading a lot of poetry simply because sometimes I am baffled by it. So then I see this thing, Poetry Thursday, and I am intrigued. And there are really only a handful of channels on BookTube that I am regularly watching, and part of that is because my YouTube footprint is mostly within the vinyl community because of, my record collecting, and I love talking about records because it's kind of one of those things that lots of people like music, but they're not very willing to have discussions about music and why one band or group or song is better than another band or group or song, or the difference in genres. So, and I like to talk about that, but even with my friends, there's only, I think, I can really only count in terms of personal friends, maybe one or two that, we talk about music and record collecting. So that's why I have that channel. And I know a lot of readers, but we don't often, sometimes we talk about the books we read, but we often also have very different tastes, and we read very different material. And so it is easier, though, I think, to talk with others about books because from time to time, people will. That's a conversation subject. But real deep analysis, and I'm not trying to do that. And I'm not saying that people on BookTube are doing that. Some do. Some, that's their shtick, and that's fine. But yeah, I'm just slowly venturing into YouTube, and I'm spending a lot of time with this setup because, as I said, I am still, venturing into the water. and I'm probably up to my knees. And uh, and as I say, there's really only a handful of channels that I watch regularly. And because I am new, my feed is not necessarily being populated with a lot of booktube uh, videos. And frankly, there are some booktubers who their style and what they talk about just doesn't appeal to me. And I'm not saying that, I think they're terrible or bad or unknowledgeable or whatever. Not like that. It just doesn't appeal to me. You know, just like modern country music doesn't appeal to me. But early country and cowboy music does appeal to me. Yeah. So, anyway. Yeah, so Poetry Thursday. And I hope I don't have too many poems to read, because there's nothing like the eager newcomer, the eager rookie who ends up sharing too much, oversharing, and then they kind of spoil their debut. But there are several poems from this. As I said, I don't own a lot of poetry books. And there is one here. This one, Listen to the Warm, by Rod McKuen. So Rod McKuen, born in 1933 in California, lived in the West. He's been a movie actor and a stuntman. He's been a DJ and a newspaper columnist. He wrote psychological warfare scripts during the Korean War. He's got some interesting material here. And, professionally, I think we have, some commonalities. For the most part, the collection of poems here, he's writing to and about a lover of his. And, but it starts off with some poems about his cat. And that's what I want to start with. So I'm just going to get to it here so I don't babble on too much more and bore all of you. For a while, the only earth that Sloopy knew was in her sandbox. 2 rooms on 55th Street were her domain. Every night she'd sit in the window among the avocado plants, waiting for me to come home, my arms full of canned liver and love. We'd talk into the night, then contented, but missing something. She the earth, she never knew. Me the hills, I ran while growing bent. Sloopy should have been a cowboy's cat with prairies to run, not linoleum, and real live catnip mice. No one to depend on but herself. I never told her, but in my mind, I was a midnight cowboy even then, riding my imaginary horse down 42nd Street, going off with strangers, to live an hour-long cowboy's life, but always coming home to Sloopy, who loved me best. I like that poem. I really do like that. Then the rest of the book is primarily poems that he's writing about this love interest of his. And I don't know the biographical details about this, but I do enjoy the poems. This one's called 7. The first one I just read was called 1. We touch shoulder to shoulder. You can't do more when crossing streets with mannequins and windows looking back. I try to match your step. That way I'm sure of staying close. You smell like love. That must be so, for what I smell is dear to me and new. And so a little walk through town becomes a journey a love vacation from ourselves, but with ourselves. Everything you say is funny or beautiful. Yeah, I like that poem, and I like it. The visual of walking shoulder to shoulder, um, and not being able to do anything more because of the mannequins in the window. I just like that image because growing up gay, that's kind of how it was for me, being with somebody that I was infatuated with or attracted to. Um, just being able to walk side by side, shoulder to shoulder, gently touching each other with the shoulder was about as intimate as you could get, without drawing nasty attention. And McKuen's not a gay man. He's very much a heterosexual, but I do love his poetry. All right, this one's called 14. How can we be sure of anything? The tide changes. The wind that made the grain wave gently yesterday blows down the trees tomorrow. And the sea sends sailors crashing on the rocks as easily as it guides them safely home. I love the sea, but it doesn't make me less afraid of it. I love you, but I'm not always sure of what you are and how you feel. I'd like to crawl behind your eyes and see me the way you do, or climb through your mouth and sit on every word that comes up through your throat. Maybe I could be sure then, maybe I could know. As it is, I hide beneath your frowns or worry when you laugh too loud. Always sure a storm is rising. The next one, 15. I also like this one. It might be my favorite of this entire collection. This one, number 28, is going to be a good one, though, too. All right, this one's 15. I have loved you in so many ways, in crowds or all alone, when you were sleeping beside me, when you were away, and I imagined others watching you in the street, or worse, you in other people's arms. I have seen the march of beach birds and loved you. I have lent myself to summer sun and loved you. And seeing naked trees and raising my collar to the wind and counting minutes till chartered hours were there, I have loved you. And the question never asked. The answers learned at love's expense. I've promised myself, I will not ask where you have been tonight. I'll only say hello and hope. I like that poem even though it has a bit of a creep factor in it. A little bit of dark possessiveness. But I think when we first love someone, that happens. And we either learn to overcome it, and then the relationship can continue its natural course, or we fail to overcome it and we become overwhelmed by it, and that usually wrecks the relationship. So even though there's a slight creep factor to it, I like that one. Okay, the next one, 28. This one really struck me. 28. You won't believe this, but I'm going off to war. I know that's hard to understand. To think of me knee-deep in mud when I so love the sand. When I so love the water, to run along the beach and play, it's hard to think of killing someone on a beach someday. That's what they want of me, you know. That's what I'm training for. To think, I used to think our fights were tantamount to war. And then the final one from Rod McKuen. I have two others by another poet. But this one is Him and the Cat. It's called Me and the Cat. And, you know, I like cats. Used to have a cat. Used to have cats. We've seen so many winters come and watched so many old years go and held so many hands at dawn we never really got to know. Lying down someplace shady and flat, me and my shirt tails, him with his whiskers, me and the cat. We've done so many foolish things, and yet the days have served us well. We've given all our smiles away when there were some we cared to sell. Living the good life without getting fat, me and my shirt tails, him with his whiskers, me and the cat. Looking back, few friends had we, but I've got him, and he's got me. And when the golden minute comes, when we no longer wake to smell the river where the wild swans sailed, the orchard where the blossoms fell, we'll smile a little thinking of that. Me and my shirt tails, him with his whiskers, me and the cat. So those are a few poems by Rod McKuen from his collection, Listen to the Warm. And then I have two more poems because they are, I don't have copies, I don't have them in book form, so I had to look them up online to be able to read them. But I recently moved out of Chicago to my new location here in Holland, Michigan, and I love Chicago. There's no other city in the U.S. I would rather live in than Chicago. But I've been a renter all my life, so I've never purchased a home, largely because I changed jobs with such frequency. And as a result, I just never, buying something never occurred to me because of the idea of I was going to be moving on. Anyway, I love these poems by Carl Sandburg. He is probably one of my favorite poets. I think I first learned of Carl Sandburg when I was in maybe junior high school, maybe late elementary school. But he was a poet from the early 20th century, and he wrote this collection called Chicago Poems. It was published in 1916. And I tell you, in getting ready for this Poetry Thursday, I need to find that collection and add it to my book collection. All right, so the first one is called simply Chicago. Hog butcher for the world, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads and the nation's freight handler, stormy, husky, brawling, city of the big shoulders. They tell me you are wicked, and I believe them, for I have seen your painted women under the gas lamps luring the farm boys. And they tell me you are crooked, and I answer, yes, it is true. I have seen the gunmen kill and go free to kill again. And they tell me you are brutal, and my reply is, On the faces of women and children, I have seen the marks of wanton hunger. And having answered, so I turn once more to those who sneer at this my city, and I give them back the sneer and say to them, come and show me another city with lifted head, singing so proud to be alive and coarse and strong and cunning, flinging magnetic curses amid the toil of piling job on job. Here is a tall, bold slugger set vivid against the little soft cities. Fierce as a dog with tongue lapping for action, cunning as a savage pitted against the wilderness, bareheaded, shoveling, wrecking, planning, building, breaking, rebuilding. Under the smoke, dust all over his mouth, laughing with white teeth. Under the terrible burden of destiny, laughing as a young man laughs. Laughing even as an ignorant fighter laughs, who has never lost a battle. Bragging and laughing that under his wrist is the pulse, and under his ribs the heart of the people. Laughing. Laughing the stormy, husky, brawling laughter of youth, half naked, sweating, proud to be hog butcher, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads, and freight handler to the nation. Yeah, there's no city like Chicago. And I've been to most of the big cities in the United States. And I've been to some cities in other countries. And when it comes to at least the cities in the United States, Chicago is the best. All right, last one here. I think I'm already overstaying my welcome with this debut for Poetry Thursday. But this is my favorite poem of all time. And like I was saying earlier, I'm not sure when I first heard it. I know I was very young. So it would have been no earlier than 4th grade, and I think no later than 7th grade. And it's called, and this is another one by Carl Sandburg, it's called Fog. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches, and then moves on. Ever since I first heard that poem, I just loved it. And having lived in Chicago near the lake, I so get the image that is written here. Absolutely amazing. So there you have it. That's my debut for Poetry Thursday. Hey, leave a comment in the down under. I love getting the comments. Your reaction. Thumbs up, please, on the video, because it really does help with distribution. And as I say all the time, any video you like that you find on YouTube, you should be hitting the like button. Even if you're already subscribed to that channel. Subscribe to this one if you like. I am also on Instagram as NewsDude76. That's NEWZDUDE76. And I have a Facebook page called Calvin Wazoo, but that is focused on record collecting, my videos about music, and other videos that I find and articles I post there. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you made it through, and I hope you come again. And remember to pray for the people inside your head, for they won't be there when you're dead.